Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us on today's Fighting Hate from Home. Please stay on the line. We'll be getting started momentarily. Please note that today's call will be recorded and accessible via the ADL YouTube channel. In order to maintain focus on our speakers, all participants' mics and videos have been turned off. We're pleased to offer closed captioning for this webinar. To turn your captioning on or off, please click the closed caption button on the bottom of your Zoom program screen. You can also use the up arrow next to that button to adjust the size of the captions as you need. If you're joining us today from a computer, there is a chat option on the bottom of the Zoom program where you can type in your question at any time. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce today's moderator, ADL's Vice President of Advocacy, Shira Goodman. Shira, over to you.
Thank you, and good afternoon. In today's webinar, we're going to delve into the findings from our latest campus climate survey. This survey, conducted by ADL, Hillel International, and College Pulse, offers vital insights into the experiences of Jewish students on college campuses across the United States, particularly in the wake of the 10/7 Hamas attacks on Israel. Thank you for joining us today and for standing in the fight against hate with us and working to build a brighter, more inclusive future for our students all across the country. To start off, I'm pleased to welcome Maya Harpaz, a student at the University of Pennsylvania and the president of the Penn Hillel. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. As a student who is in the middle of the campus anti-Semitism crisis after October 7th, can you tell us how you feel things are on campus now for you and your colleagues?
Yes, thank you, Shira, and thank you everyone for being here. At this moment, I would say that things are going pretty well since the 7th of last year. We just got a new Hillel executive board that's been going super well, and people are really excited about engaging in Jewish life and showing their Zionism. But at the same time, we're still dealing with a lot of anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist sentiment on campus, especially in our student government. We have our undergraduate assembly committee that has been tirelessly trying to pass a BDS resolution. So that's sort of been our main focus so far this year. But things have definitely been on the up since last year, especially with our new interim president and new administrators.
That's great to hear. One of the troubling findings in the survey was that Jewish students continue to feel that they need to hide their Jewish identities on campus. Have you seen that at Penn or heard that from your colleagues at other campuses?
Yes, I've definitely heard, especially for people who aren't in leadership positions and in our pro-Israel clubs that are not maybe in as pro-Israel circles, that they have definitely been scared to show their Jewish and Zionist identity, whether that be being afraid to wear a necklace or a bracelet that signifies their Jewish identity, or removing an Instagram post from their birthright trip. So that's definitely been very troubling to see. But at the same time, at Penn, I would say that we're very lucky that we have a very large Jewish community. So we're able to find and support each other in these times and still have large rallies, large protests, and large events where we can come together and be Jewish. So I would say in group settings, people are still very proud to show that identity. But on a day-to-day basis in classes or in clubs or with friends, it's definitely become a lot harder when you sort of feel like you're the odd one out of the group and the only Jew in that circle.
How has being part of Hillel and a Hillel leader helped you in the last year and a half? And what would you recommend to other students who are just coming onto campus or thinking about where to go to college?
Wow, I mean, Hillel has really helped me in every way, shape, or form. As you mentioned, I'm the president of the Hillel on my campus. And in addition to that, I'm also the vice chair of the Israel Leadership Network, which is the largest Zionist group of students through Hillel International. And Hillel has really provided me with an endless amount of resources and support on my campus. Just having such a large community around me and large group of leaders to help educate me and build off of each other and figure out the best way that we can move forward. Our Hillel staff are truly amazing. I am always in the building just bouncing ideas off of them about what we can do to make our Jewish community stronger. And for students coming onto campus, I would definitely recommend just going to your Hillel and seeing what they have to offer. Our Hillel offers an amazing new student orientation program where we take about 70 new freshman students for a few days before school actually starts, and they get to meet so many other Jewish students and bond with each other and get to know each other. So then when they come back and school already starts, they already know tons of other students on their campus that share their same values and morals. And it's been a huge successful program that they all have each other now. And the freshmen have really just shown me that we can move forward because they're way less concerned about the anti-Semitism on our campus and we're way more concerned with just making friends and having a good time. So that's really shown me that we are going to move forward out of this dark time that we've been. In addition, Hillel has offered me incredible opportunities. They helped me get to the White House last May to go to the Jewish Heritage Month celebration. I've spoken to the Hillel International Board to share what's going on Penn's campus, and my Penn Hillel helped me become the only undergraduate student on the Penn Anti-Semitism Task Force last year. So they've really helped me be able to speak up in any way that I can, in any way that I've wanted to. So I could not be more grateful for Hillel in these times.
Well, that's great to hear, and I'm sure one of our next speakers is going to be particularly excited to have heard all that. Last question. What would you like college administrators to know and to hear from students right now? What changes do you still need to see from them, and what support are you needing?
One of the biggest changes that we're hoping to see is to actually have a working definition of anti-Semitism. We've been working for a while to get IRA passed, both at the state level in Pennsylvania and in our school administration. Having that definition is obviously the strongest definition of anti-Semitism that we have and includes anti-Zionism bias within it. And will also help make sure that our educators and our faculty know what anti-Semitism is, because there's so much conflation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, and so many professors and students who spread very anti-Semitic hate hide it under the gaze of, oh, we're just fighting for Palestinian rights, or, oh, we're just being critical of Israel, when it is clearly and blatant anti-Semitism. So having that definition, I think, would really help all schools to make sure that everyone knows what we're talking about when we're talking about anti-Semitism. As I mentioned before, making sure that you do not pass BDS. Luckily, our administration and our state laws will prevent that from happening, but our student government is still working tirelessly to pass it, even if they pass the resolution, it won't actually get passed into our schools' policies. But all administration should take that stance and be heavily against BDS, and also just being vocally supportive of your Jewish students and condemning anti-Semitism when it is so obvious. Obviously, schools have worked tirelessly to work against all forms of hate, and anti-Semitism cannot and should not be an exception. And that needs to happen at every university across the board. We can't just let anti-Semitism exist under the gaze that it's fighting for pro-Palestinian rights, when it is really just targeting and threatening the Jewish students on your campus.
Well, Maya, well put. That's one of the things we've been asking universities to do for the last year and a half, to use their own speech rights to be very clear and to condemn anti-Semitism and to speak out in support of their students. So thank you for being a voice of moral clarity for our campus leaders. I'm going to bring you back for questions and answers with Jonathan and Adam, but really thank you for sharing your perspective and being with us here during a time when you have class and work. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate all you're doing for your Jewish colleagues on campus.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO and National Director of ADL, and Adam Lehman, CEO and President of Hillel International, to the call. Thank you, Jonathan and Adam. It's good to see you both. We're a year and a half in. Can you please tell us how you feel as leaders of two of the organizations really dedicated to fighting campus anti-Semitism? Where do you think we stand? Where are we going? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the question. Thank you, Adam, for joining us today. And thank you, Maya. Like, how amazing is she? So I don't know what you're doing after you graduate in a few months, Maya, but I definitely hope you will give me a call or send me a text or whatnot, because you are a rock star, and I really love what you're doing at Penn, a place that's had so much tumult. So to the question you posed here, and I think it's on everyone's minds, like, where do things stand today on campuses? I think it's fair to say that in this academic year, we've seen both progress and we've seen setbacks in the fight against anti-Semitism at campuses. I mean, we've seen an alarming surge of anti-Jewish incidents. With our recent campus climate survey shows that over 80% of Jewish students have experienced or firsthand witnessed anti-Semitism on their campuses since 10/7. That's extraordinary. 4 out of 5 college students have either directly experienced or witnessed something. That is not normal and is so far beyond where we were a few years ago, it's mind-bending. Because it's not just numbers. I mean, these are the real life experiences faced by Jewish students. Imagine walking through the quad, or trying to find a place to sit in a dining hall, or signing up for a club, and so on and so forth, and not knowing whether the fact that you don't get a call back for the club, the fact that no one sits with you in the dining hall, the fact that, again, people harass you when you walk down the quad. If every external experience you have is a kind of conflict, of course the anxiety levels are higher than ever. And yet at the same time, despite all of the madness, there have definitely been encouraging developments. Many schools have been implementing new strategies to address anti-Semitism. Many of them have been adapting their existing policies. Many of them have actually been implementing new, like, demonstration policies that kind of think about time, place, and manner when it comes to free speech. Many of them are actually enforcing their own rules and making sure there are consequences. So all that's good. And if I just quickly share to look ahead beyond sort of where we've been, I mean, I think I am very clear that we have got to continue. We can't take our foot off the gas. The high rate of reported anti-Semitic incidents, the new trends we're seeing of anti-Zionism that Maya was sort of alluding to, people trying to disguise their bigotry under the guise of, like, political frameworks or whatnot. Like, we have got to be vigilant. We've got to be proactive. We've got to be foot forward on this, and that's our plan. It's not just about combating overt anti-Semitism. It's about dismantling the prejudices that fuel it, and that's what we're focused on.
Great. Adam, how about you? You have the privilege to work with students like Maya all the time. What are you hearing and seeing? What's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shira, and great to be with Jonathan and so many other important partners from ADL. And I will also say kol hakavod to Maya, who is an outstanding student leader. And fortunately, we're able to support thousands of student leaders like Maya who are making an enormous difference on their campuses every day. In terms of the big picture, I want to highlight 2 positives and 1 enormous challenge. Positive number 1, just to underscore what Jonathan shared, I think as a community, we should not underestimate what we have accomplished. This is through the work of Hillel, through the work of ADL, through the work of many other organizations. We have literally moved the higher education market to improve in meaningful ways when it comes to addressing Jewish student concerns. That is manifesting in far fewer mass protest activities that had been the source of a lot of harassment and intimidation directed at Jewish students last year. Those mass protest activities are down by 2/3. By the way, I should be very clear, and I know that ADL shares this perspective. We very much support free speech and free expression, but not when it translates into direct harassment, discrimination, assault, and other unlawful activities that typically also violate campus policy and practice. So those improvements are real. And as Jonathan said, there are many university partners who are working in good faith to continue to improve their policies, improve their practices. Second part of the positive, the joy before the oi side of this equation, we continue to see not only incredible student leaders like Maya, but Jewish students more broadly turning out in record numbers to engage in positive ways with Jewish life. Just this past fall, we hosted a series of concerts under the brand Yallapalooza, where thousands of Jewish students came together to celebrate Jewish music with Israeli artists, with other Jewish artists. And every day on campuses through Hillel, through our partners at Chabad and other organizations, Jewish students are coming together to actually stand up and visibly express their Jewish identities with joy and with pride. The challenge is, of course, what Shira, you and Maya touched on. More than 40% of Jewish students still indicate that they are uncomfortable fully expressing their Jewish identities. This is completely unacceptable. and something we're going to have to work very hard to address. And the data point Jonathan underscored were 4 of 5 Jewish students have directly experienced or observed anti-Semitism. That data follows all of the improvements we've seen in terms of administrations taking action. So these issues are so much deeper than any one settlement of a Title VI investigation or any one improvement of a university's policy and responses. As I'm sure we'll talk about, we have to get even deeper in fixing a broken culture within higher education.
Thanks, Adam. I love that Yallapalooza. Can you talk a little bit about why
Hold on.
ADL?
We could just talk about Yallapalooza for the next hour. That is the best name of any conference I've ever. Yallapalooza. Like, I want to see the merch. I want Yallapalooza merch.
Yeah, no one bothered us for trademark infringement, so that's good. And kidding aside, what a wonderful moment where we saw more than 300 Hillel send students to, it was 3 locations as a pilot, New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. I would love to see these all across the country and open to any students or young people who just want to celebrate being Jewish in a joyful, positive way.
I love it.
Yeah. So what prompted this survey that Hillel International, ADL, and College Pulse released last week, the day that you've started talking about? What prompted this, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think a few things prompted it. As both Jonathan and I have shared, we continue to see significant issues at Hillel International. Even this academic year alone, we have been troubleshooting more than 1,000 reported issues just in the past few days. We had a mezuzah torn down at Lehigh. We had several buildings vandalized at Columbia. At Ohio State, we had a Chabad chapter where it wasn't simply being picketed and protested because they had Israeli speakers present, which in and of itself is so problematic. But the language being used as students were walking out, and we see this unfortunately at Hillel events frequently, related to accusations of them being baby killers and saying they should kill themselves. So, I mean, the tenor of where we do see issues continues to be really problematic. So that required organizations that are in a leadership role, Hillel and ADL in this context, to follow up on surveys we've done in the past to really get a pulse. We are unfortunately sometimes in a case and situation here where there's gaslighting going on, and there are many people outside of the Jewish community who will say, oh, these issues are overblown, or these are issues of free speech, or, you know, why are Jewish students so sensitive? So we have to be able to actually make it clinical and document where the issues are. And we were delighted to be able to partner with ADL. We always want to partner with the best in the world when it comes to all the different aspects of what it means to be Jewish on campus. And of course, ADL, relative to its work fighting anti-Semitism, is at the top. So it was great to be able to partner with them, and even as sobering as the data is, to be able to bring that to light in this moment.
Thanks, Adam. Jonathan, do you want to talk a little bit about the partnership and what is striking to you from this survey?
Well, I mean, I think from the partnerships perspective, you know, it's our general view here at ADL that number one, none of us can do it alone. We're stronger when we're together. The idea that any single Jewish organization has the monopoly or lock on anything is crazy. We know what we know about anti-Semitism, and we've been focused on this longer, and I think more ferociously than any other group. And yet, like, let's be clear, Hillel International has unrivaled, peerless expertise on college campuses. And so we can't be on college campuses. So I think it's important to partner with the groups and collaborate with the players who have this subject matter expertise, have boots on the ground, and that's Hillel. And look, I'm proud that we work with a lot of groups in different areas. I just think a modality of partnerships is the best way forward. And I should also note that we're doing more with Hillel than just, this. I mean, we're doing the Campus Anti-Semitism legal line, this platform we built with Hillel and Brandeis Center and others to facilitate Title VI claims. Our call platform has handled more than 900 reports of Title VI violations in the last, 14 months, maybe 15 months. So we also are work together on policy recommendations for legislators and, the executive branch. So whether it's advocacy or whether it's, these sort of surveys or whether it's, hands-on initiatives like CALL, I think as campus anti-Semitism remains a tremendous problem, we've got to continue to sustain and strengthen the partnership that we have between Hillel and ADL and find ways to do more with even more players in the months and years ahead.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Plus, I just want to table. I want to bring a food truck to. I want to see the food trucks at Yallapalooza. Like, I think they probably have amazing food. It's kosher. It's probably represents lots of Jewish cuisine from all around the world. Like, I want in on the Yallapalooza food truck scene, Adam. So make a note of that, please.
Perfect extension of the partnership. We will follow up for sure.
Totally.
I love that. Often we get asked, why aren't you all working together? So thank you for highlighting not just the survey, but the advocacy work and the call line. I think it's so important. Adam, what's striking to you from this survey? What was the thing that stood up the most that you really think we need to focus on going forward?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I really feel like, as shocking as it is, the 83% of students saying they've observed or experienced anti-Semitism is hopefully going to become a trailing indicator, something that does decline over time here. The more lasting data point for me is the one I mentioned before, 41% of Jewish students surveyed saying that they are afraid, for actually pretty rational reasons, to fully express their Jewish identities, including their authentic connections to Israel, for fear of consequence. And those consequences, again, are real. There are academic consequences in the classroom where they have faced discrimination. There are consequences in dorm rooms and living situations on the quad. I've been hearing about, even at a Greek rush level, consequences during the current rush season. So that, to me, is really where we need to make sure we are both addressing the structural issues where administrators and others can play a role, and also injecting chizuk, strength, with Jewish students and their allies, so that they can be resilient and stand up with pride and show leadership in the process.
Yeah, one of the things that was really striking to me, Jonathan, is that although things have seemed a little quieter, students themselves are not feeling that. They're still not feeling like campus is what they expected when they went to college. And one of the things that they're really upset about is that they're seeing incidents and anti-Semitism and rhetoric from faculty. So what do you think about that, and what can we do about that?
No, look, like, the research certainly confirms this. The research that we've conducted, at least, while there's a lot of incidents of anti-Semitism on campuses that stem from what's happening between students at, like, a fraternity rush or sorority rush that Adam was just alluding to a minute ago, there's an undeniable presence of anti-Jewish acts and cases involving faculty members. And I think something like 25% or more of Jewish students say they've observed anti-Semitic activity by faculty members. And they have I don't need to say this perhaps, but, like, the professor has a very different position in the kind of campus ecosystem than some random student or even the loud student activist. The professor is seen as an authority figure. The professor has a kind of influence. The professor is also influencing not just down to the students, but across to other members of the faculty. So their involvement in these incidents are alarming. What can we do? It needs to be called out. I would really beseech students and parents and staff, when you become aware of an anti-Semitic incident, file an incident report with ADL. If we're tracking it, we can deal with it. We can bring to bear some of our capabilities to try to help make sure the issue gets effectively addressed. So reporting matters, even in a classroom. And things can be done anonymously so a student doesn't jeopardize themselves or potentially endanger their grade. So that's number one. I think number two, it's just super important to, as we document what happens, to be finding trusted peers with whom we can engage on this stuff, whether it's your Hillel director or a friendly professor or someone you know in the administration, don't leave these things alone. You know, like that sign in the subway, when you see something, say something. When you see something, even the faculty member, you gotta say something to somebody else on campus in addition to filing a report.
That's great advice. And at the end of this fighting from home, we will put all those links in the chat for call, for incidents through both Hillel has a reporting system and ADL does, and we share data. So we will share all that. So you don't have to ask in the chat. We will put it in the chat so you have it, and we'll send it in the follow-up. Adam, a lot of people say this is just anti-Semitism is there. There's nothing administrators can do. As Jonathan said at the top, some of the steps that people were taking. What are you calling on administrators to do?
Yeah, I want to briefly touch on the faculty issue just because it is so significant, and then I will answer the question about administrators. Unfortunately, the 27% data point from the survey of students who saw faculty discrimination or bias expressed very much tracks what we see in terms of individual incident data. And as Jonathan pointed out, this is deeply structural. Faculty, it's not only structural in that, faculty tend to remain in their roles for years or decades. It's that there is not the same legal or governance oversight for them. So you don't have, for example, under Title VI, a recourse directly relative to faculty. It is only relative to the university. And often faculty are self-governed within the university structure. So I just want to point out that we, like ADL, are very much tuned into the importance of this faculty issue. Much like my answer about free speech, we very much support academic freedom. And this is not about in any way limiting the research, scholarship, or relevant classroom activities that a faculty member might pursue. The issues that we're talking about are so over the top. They are about actually faculty abusing their authority within a classroom and their power differential to engage in hostile and discriminatory conduct, typically just to advance their own personal ideology and political goals. That is not either permitted or what should be supported in terms of notions of academic freedom. And as my colleague Mark Rotenberg, our general counsel, also points out, academic freedom is also the academic freedom of students to be able to hold and express their views. So in addition to some of the key things Jonathan mentioned, this is an area where legislators for state institutions can do more to make sure that appropriate standards are in place. And working with a partner for both Hillel and ADL, the Academic Engagement Network, we need to continue to make sure that administrators, and this gets to the other part of your question, that administrators are using the authority they do have to police these issues. Now, in terms of other things that administrators need to do, I'll boil it down to 3 E's: educate, enforce, and excavate. Number one, it is incumbent on our university administrations to make sure that their staff, their faculty, and their students understand why anti-Semitism is such an issue in this moment, and to educate about those issues in the same way they do other forms of racism or discrimination. Number two, they need to enforce their policies. We have seen, and hopefully many listening in know this, there are a lot of campuses where thankfully the issues are not nearly as complicated, and it's because those administrators, at institutions like a Vanderbilt or Duke or a University of Miami, so many others, University of Florida, have made clear that they're going to enforce their rules. It's one of the things that fortunately many campuses are pursuing more aggressively this year, and it's just critical because it sets a tone for what will be acceptable behavior on a campus. And finally, the excavation, the 30, is critical because, as hopefully we'll continue to talk about on this webinar, the issues are not just issues of this moment. They are deep and structural, related to faculty, related to policy, related to why certain behaviors are deemed culturally acceptable in a way they never would be for other minority groups. So that is really the true hard work that we need administrations to commit to. We have a program called the Campus Climate Initiative that partners with administrators in this process. But this is 3 to 5 year deep work. And we all know it's taken decades to get to this point. It's going to take a lot of hard work to get to where we can all, with confidence, say that we think these university campuses that have been so challenged are actually healthy environments for Jewish students and all students.
Jonathan, what do you think? What do we need to be focusing on right now, given these surveys, given the high level of incidents that are still coming in, given what we see every day in our campus alert, that there's still incidents everywhere and real problems, and what Maya said?
So I guess I have a bunch of thoughts. So I think number one, there's something that's implicit in what Adam is saying and what we've been talking about this whole time that I just want to lift up. Universities need to recognize they have a problem. Not to equivocate between anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, not to just fold anti-Semitism into the list or the litany of issues on campus. They need to acknowledge, first and foremost, that anti-Jewish bias is pernicious and very kind of, clever and unlike, race-based animus or unlike some different forms of intolerance. Jews are a religion. Jews are also an ethnicity. Jews have a political connection or personal relationship with a political entity, the state of Israel. And so all these things allow anti-Semitism to show up differently than other forms of hate. So I think, number one, administrators need to acknowledge the complexity and the reality of the issue on its own without equivocating, without equalizing, et cetera. That's number one. I think number two, administrators should be implementing comprehensive mandatory training on anti-Semitism for all students and staff. By the way, I think anti-Semitism training should be rooted in the IRA definition, which acknowledges the different ways that anti-Semitism in a contemporary context can manifest. So number one, acknowledge there's an issue. And that helps your Jewish students feel heard. And again, I think we have to admit a problem before we can hope to solve it. Number two, mandatory training based on the IRA kind of framework. I think number three, universities really need to upgrade and improve their reporting systems. I'm calling it what happens. I think something like 90+%, if I have that number right, and Adam can correct me, 92% of students who experience anti-Semitism didn't report it, which is crazy. In part, they don't report it because they're afraid of the backlash. Again, especially if it's against the professor. They're afraid of indifference if it relates to an administrator. But as I mentioned before, time, place, and manner policies need to be revised and reporting systems need to be upgraded. And then I think finally I would say that, these universities need to create inclusive environments where every person, Jewish or non-Jewish, feels welcome, like they can actively promote and participate in public life. The idea that Jews should have to go into the closet, the idea that Jewish college students should have to change their names on their DoorDash or Uber apps so they don't sound Jewish, the idea that these Jewish students don't even bother reporting because they think it's going to fall on deaf ears, that's crazy. So you would acknowledge the problem on the front end and on the back end, supporting Jewish student organizations, embracing the diversity of Jewish life on campus, that really matters. Again, I think universities play such an outsized role in our culture because they're places where minds are shaped and values are formed. Universities have got to get this right if we want to hold all of this together.
So one last question for each of you before I bring Maya back. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about faculty with her. We didn't get to do that at the top. What can students and parents, faculty and alumni, other campus stakeholders, how can they engage with ADL and Hillel International to help be part of the solution to combat anti-Semitism on their campus? We can start with you, Jonathan, then go to Adam, and then I'll bring Maya in.
Well, look, I think we're continuing to do our research so students can get involved in the research efforts that we're doing. We're continuing to look for Title VI cases that we can prosecute and push for changes on campus so students can submit their cases, through Hillel to our call system. And students get involved. I mean, again, we're never going to be Hillel on campus and don't want to be. Hillel does an amazing job. But, we're always looking for interns. We're always looking for volunteers. And just sharing information with us can help. So we make things like our report card better. So get involved in research. File if you think you experienced anti-Semitism, an incident report with ADL. Submit a case if you think you have a Title VI claim. And then find ways to get involved. Volunteer, intern, show up.
Great. Adam, how can folks engage with you?
Yeah, I would add to that list, just promote the resources that are out there. It's not a time to panic. It's a time to band together and leverage what are constructive interventions. So in addition to some of the things Jonathan mentioned, we created something called Campus for All. It's campusforall.org, number 4, which is a student resource with lots of great educational content drawn from partners like ADL, but that also has ways that students can follow up, whether with their Hillel professionals or others, to make sure issues are being addressed. I mentioned our Campus Climate Initiative. Same thing. If you go to the Campus Climate Initiative website, directing administrators you have a relationship with to partner with Hillel, with ADL, with other organizations doing good work in this space. I think that's something that can be helpful. And 2 other key things. One, try to approach this in a coordinated way. So as Jonathan said, reporting through to organizations like ADL and Hillel, where you have a relationship. Do not try to take matters into your own hands. As Maya said, we have amazing Hillel professionals on campus, and it is not helpful to them or, frankly, students if parents, community members, others try to take issues into their own hands. We often have deep relationships with administrators, with law enforcement, with others. We will be aggressive in taking on issues, but it's better when we as a community can be in sync and speak with one voice than if individual parents or others are trying to pursue something which can be at cross purposes, frankly, with other strategies that we're pursuing. Finally, in that regard, whether at Hillel, ADL, or others you believe are really key and credible in this space, whether you're financially supporting or volunteering, we always benefit from both kinds of investment because if I'm candid about this, the challenge remains enormous. We probably have only a small percentage of the resource even we need to execute on strategies that are already working and to do the core work, which I know we're all ultimately invested in, which is enabling Jewish students to grow their Jewish identities and their love for Jewish life.
Excellent. I'm going to bring Maya back. Maya Harpaz, welcome back. One of the questions is, what should students do if they don't have a Hillel on campus? Where should they go for support? Where can they turn?
Who's that question for?
Maya? Whoever knows the answer, I think.
Maya, I can start. I think something that I found helpful is finding, first of all, other student allies and other faculty on campus that are also Jewish. Something that we've been trying to do right now actually is bring in more Jewish faculty into our programming, because there's so many that want to be involved, but they're also very scared because this is their job, this is their profession, and they're scared to speak up. So finding other trusted adults on your campus, I think, is a great resource if you don't have a Hillel on your campus. And then I'm sure Jonathan and Adam can talk more about this, but reaching out to Hillel International and ADL and all the other amazing national Jewish organizations that have so many resources and places to report bias incidents, as they were mentioning.
That was a great start, Maya. I think the reporting is critical, and the reporting is not at all limited to where there is an active Hillel, Chabad, or other Jewish campus organization. Fortunately, we are present on 850 campuses. So in some of those cases, that's a Hillel student club with a faculty or administrative advisor. So for sure, students should draw on those advisors where they are available on our website, hillel.org. You can always see that information. But again, the Report Campus Hate app and the ADL Inroad for Reporting is there. This is part of the reason, Shira, that we created Campus for All, so that wherever you may be, as a Jewish student or other student, you can find reporting tools, you can join leadership development programs, you can learn about and learn how to respond to misinformation about Israel, about Zionism, about anti-Semitism. And so those are additional ways that families and students can report and find resources.
Jonathan, do you want to add anything there? Oh, I think we
Just
lost
think-
your sound. Oh, there you go.
I think there's a lot there. I don't think I have a lot more to add.
Great. I would just say also the Not on My Campus campaign that ADL has started has resources for parents, students, faculty, and alumni. You can see them at notoleranceforantisemitism.adl.org. One of the things we started talking about with Jonathan and Adam, Maya, is that the survey showed that more students were experiencing anti-Semitism or witnessing anti-Semitism at the hands of their faculty and their professors. So wanted to know if you have heard about that and what repercussions we can be asking for that, and how we can be supporting students who are feeling maybe afraid to even talk to anybody official about what happens in the classroom.
Yes, so unfortunately, we've had a lot of incidents like this, especially in the humanities departments, history, English. It's a lot less in our business and engineering schools. And it's definitely been very difficult because a lot of these professors are tenured. So it's a very long process and hard process to do anything about it, because by the time you even have a follow-up, you're probably already graduated, because we're only here for 4 years and the faculty are here for much longer. And as Jonathan mentioned before, there's definitely a power dynamic when your professors are the ones that are grading your papers and your tests, and you don't want to speak up or have a certain viewpoint because you're scared that might impact your grade. So we definitely need to be asking universities for more accountability for these professors. If professors are outwardly supporting Hamas, we've had a lot of professors that have actually partaken in some of the rallies on our campus that outwardly call for the genocide of Jews and all sorts of terrible obscenities. And these professors should not be allowed to be spewing this hate and teaching in a classroom with not just Jewish students, but really any Jewish students. There have been instances even in classes that are about remembering the Holocaust, where professors have compared the Holocaust to and Nazi Germany to Israel. So it's pretty crazy that this is being allowed to happen. And as Adam said, we obviously don't want to censor free speech or censor academic freedom. However, when that crosses into the line of preventing students' free speech because they don't feel like they can express their true views because their grade will be impacted, that's a problem. And university administrators need to take a harder stance in preventing this pervasive environment.
Well put. Jonathan, one of the things we've been worried about is not just the kind of resolutions Maya talked about at the top, like a student government resolution calling for divestment, but these soft academic boycotts. And somebody asked from the audience, what is happening with BDS, not just divestment, but are Israeli and Jewish scholars feeling the impacts of that? What do you know about that?
Yeah, look, I think there's hard BDS and soft BDS. I think hard BDS is someone officially an entity joining the BDS campaign. It's a professor at Michigan saying, I won't write you a recommendation because I belong to the BDS movement. You have real examples of that. And soft BDS is the way companies just back out on Israel, the way media outlets just report differently things on Israel, the way NGOs feel browbeaten into having to, proactively equating anti-Semitism with anti-Muslim bias anytime anti-Semitism comes up. I think that's worrisome. That's a real trend and something we've got to push back on. So anti-Semitism is considered on its own for its merits. And that's, if you get that, that's how we can effectively confront it. Not when it's saddled with things that it isn't. So that's a place where we can do some work.
And Adam, are you finding in the Campus Climate Initiative that you're spending a lot of time on kind of foundational questions, like what Jonathan just said, like what is anti-Semitism, in fact, the definitional issues, what it looks like in practice? Do administrators know? Are they surprised to hear what's actually happening in their classrooms and on their campuses?
It's a great question because it also speaks to, what is an opportunity. Most of the administrators we interact with, we have 102 universities now working in partnership with us in this intensive campus climate initiative program. They actually, it's not that they have hate in their hearts when it comes to Jews or even Israel. They honestly don't understand the background. They don't connect the dots always between some of the language used, for example, in protests right now and very classic anti-Semitic tropes around blood libel. There are so many elements of core anti-Semitism that don't register because it's just not what they've known or what they've been exposed to. So the good news is, as they understand, they are much better equipped to empathize and to respond. The bad news part of this, there is so much misinformation out there, and it's not accidental. It is a function of a lot of major governments that have been, investing in advancing narratives that are just rife with misinformation and bias. It is a broader media ecosystem, and of course, just a completely overtaken social media ecosystem. So that is upping the ante when it comes to, even with administrators, breaking through all of that misinformation to get to where they can really understand the nature of contemporary anti-Semitism and be better partners in doing something about it.
Maya, we probably have a lot of parents and grandparents of college students on this call. So what would you like them to know? There's a lot of anxiety among that demographic about what's happening on campus. What's kind of the message from the folks on the ground?
I mean, I would first say that everything looks worse in the news. I know my mom would call me every day last semester being worried about what was going on, what was happening with this protest or the encampment or this speaker event. So I would definitely just like to assure all parents and grandparents that normal life is still going on. And yes, these are horrible incidents, but normal campus life is still occurring. Jewish life is still occurring. Our Hillel is booming every day. We have a dining hall that is full for every single meal. So things are still happening. It's not like we are shutting down or shying away from the challenges that we are facing. Something that's been very inspiring to me is my friends and peers who may have not been so involved in Jewish life before are now going to more Shabbat dinners, getting involved with more fellowships at our Hillel, and really wanting to become as involved as they can as a result of this hatred that we've been dealing with. So it's definitely a message that I would say to all parents and grandparents is it's not like life is as bad as it seems in the media, because obviously the media is going to report what's bad, but there's still so much positive and so much hope happening on my campus and campuses across the country.
That's great. Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people are glad to hear that. I wanted to make one note before I ask a final question, which is that the call legal line that Jonathan spoke about is open to faculty, because there are a bunch of questions in the chat about faculty and them experiencing anti-Semitism and discrimination on their campuses. So the call legal line, the incident reporting, is available to them. We also at ADL, and I know Hillel does as well, partnering with our with the Academic Engagement Network to support staff and faculty across the country. And there are a lot of resources available, and we can connect you. Last question for each of our panelists. I'll start with Maya. What gives you hope? Despite the findings in the survey, despite the incidents, what is there to be hopeful about as we go into this tail part of the semester?
Well, that's a great question. I would say the thing that's really giving me hope right now is I was just in Israel a few weeks ago with about 40 other pro-Israel leaders from campuses across the country. And being in Israel with some of the top leaders in this work was really inspiring and just reminded me about why I'm doing this and why it's all worth it, especially just being in Israel, getting to see my family that lives there and and really remembering what this war is all about and what we're fighting for, and how our problems are obviously huge and very scary, but being there and just realizing why it's all worth it, and the actual war that we are fighting was really just an amazing experience, and gives me hope that we will get out of this, and God willing, the war will end soon, and we will bring the hostages home, and our college students can have the 4 amazing years of their life that they deserve, regardless of their religion.
Well, that was excellently put. You put Jonathan and Adam in a hard spot, but Adam, what gives you hope?
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. Actually, it's an easy spot because there are 3 elements. And the first is our incredible student leaders like Maya. You just have witnessed why every day I'm inspired and I am given such great confidence about the way our students will lead us on a positive path forward. We actually have our Israel Summit taking place in a few weeks, where we will have Maya and hundreds of other Israel student leaders to come together, work together, gain strength and community from one another. And we have student leaders coming together around bridge building, around Jewish learning, around other forms of education, around community service. So there's just so much out there right now that our students are doing, even under these difficult circumstances, to strengthen themselves and lead the way. 2 other things that give me hope. Progress to date. As a Jewish people, we sometimes get overly focused on the challenge and negativity. Even in this moment when the challenges are significant, we have to recognize and invest into the strategies that are working. And many of the things that Jonathan and I have talked about do reflect working strategies. So let's take pride in what has worked to date, and let's just keep investing wisely in those strategies. And finally, the resilience of not only our students and our staff, but all of us as Jewish people. We're in that point in the Torah cycle where we are making the transition from slavery in Egypt to the beginning of the Exodus, the beginning of our quest for freedom and pursuit of the promised land. And so I think we all know deeply how resilient we have been as a Jewish people for thousands of years. I couldn't be more not only hopeful, but confident that if we fight with the resolve, with the data like this study represented, and with our Jewish values, we're going to come through this period just fine.
Great. Jonathan, last word. What gives you hope?
Say, look, Adam used the word resilience. I think the resilience and unity of our community. And by the way, it's students and it's staff. It's also parents. It's also alumni. It's also some faculty and administrators and our allies. Seeing allies stand with us. All of this gives me tremendous hope. Adam also mentioned Maya. Maya blows me away. And I would love to be a fly on the wall or show up, Adam, at this meeting you're doing in Israel with all the other campus leaders. People like Maya and her peers, they are the heroes of our next generation. They are our modern Maccabees. They are the ones who are fighting against really incredible odds and very complex operating environments. And so there I am, again, hopeful because of the resilience and unity of our community broadly. I'm hopeful because of the heroism and the courage of some of these students. And I am super, super hopeful because of Lollapalooza, a world where you can have Lollapalooza. I'm hopeful to find the shawarma truck at Lollapalooza. That gives me hope.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Thank you to Jonathan Greenblatt.
I may open the shawarma truck at Lollapalooza or Lollapalooza.
All right, Adam, you get the contract out. And especially thank you to Maya Harpaz for joining us today and sharing your thoughts. To read the full report, the Campus Climate Survey discussed today, you can use the link in the chat. As a reminder, if you witness or experience an anti-Semitic incident, please report it to ADL, Hillel, and if needed, the call line. You can use the links in the chat. There will be a link for how to report to ADL. There's a link for Report Campus Hate that Adam mentioned, and also how to reach the Campus Anti-Semitism legal line. You can also sign our action asking that Congress pass the Protecting Students on Campus Act to protect Jewish students and all students on campus. There'll be a link in the chat. If you text campus to 26769, that's the word campus, to 26769, it will give you a link to that action and will connect you right to your congressional representatives. Finally, please join us March 3rd to 4th at the Javits Center in New York City for Never Is Now, the world's largest summit on anti-Semitism and hate. You can use the link in the chat to register, and it's neverisnow.org. It's going to be great. There's going to be students. There's going to be talk about campus. There's going to be lots to learn about anti-Semitism and how to fight it, and we need you to be part of that fight. Until next time, stay safe and be well, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.